We thank everybody for coming to our presentation, The Creator's Timeline for Humans and the Timing of the 144,000. When does the 144,000 come in? Is there a time frame? Does the Creator have a timeline of when he introduces these people? Has he told us about this timeline? Yes, he has. This is webinar on August 11th, 2018 by Dr. Emanuel, the Electric Man. Okay, as we move forward in this study, you will notice we are going to be covering the timeline of history. We'll be looking at the 7-year plan of redeeming humans or mankind, we can put it. We'll see through this timeline that there was 6,000 years for the reign of sin in our members. And then we will find the sabbatical, yes, the time of rest, which was foretold in the 7,000-year plan, or the 7-day plan. You'll see how we all tie it together as one easy understanding timeline. During this 1,000-year reign or sabbatical, the last 1,000 years, that'll be the reign of peace. And so if we use around 4,000 BC as the fall of Adam and Eve, okay, we're just talking about the fall, not the creation. The creation story, when we start with the creation, we don't know how long Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden before they fell. So according to what I'm understanding is sin didn't enter into the scene, or decay into the scene, or death didn't enter the scene until after the fall. So as we are in the fall, what we have when we talk about the fall of mankind, or the fall that occurred, what we have is that, like I said, we don't know how long humans were around before then. And remember, the name that we saw that they translate as Adam or Adam means human. So it's not even referring also to a person, it's referring to human, okay? Now, that's based on a lot of other things. So when we look here and we talk about the fall, so prior to the fall, we don't have a time frame. We could have been in the garden a million years. We have no clue. It could have been 1,000 years. We have no clue. So this part we don't know anything about. So we're talking about after the fall, after time came into existence or decay or death. Then we talk about for the first 2,000 years, at this around 2000 BC, that's when Abraham comes on the scene. Okay, so now the question is, what happened this first 2,000 years? Then another 2,000 years for the Hebrews as they ruled. Then this ends up around 4 BC. Now, around 4 BC, this is around the birth of the Messiah. And then we talk about the time of the Gentiles came. Now, the time of the Gentiles, we don't know exactly when the time of the Gentiles, but we think it's around 33 AD. That's when the Messiah passed, was crucified. That's the date they have. So if you add 2,000 onto that, you get around 2033. Okay? And at 2033, we're not there yet, but we're approaching that time. Now, at the same time, I'm not giving a day and hour of saying that this is when the Messiah comes. No, that is not at all what I'm saying. So, since that's not at all what I'm saying, I don't want no one to walk out of here saying that Dr. Emanuel said in 2033, the end of the world is coming. No, that's not what I'm saying. These are all approximate time frame. We don't know this exact time frame. It's an approximate time frame, and then we're using mathematics. When we use mathematics, we have to realize that there's a plus or minus 5 to 10% error. Get that? 5 to 10% error. So this date and can be off by 5 or 10%. That's a lot of years. So I just want to share that with you so no one walks out of here. Okay, so now when we talk about the creation of Adam and Eve in the 7 days, that the man was created on the 6th day. Okay, so that so the first full day that man lived, or humans lived, was called the Sabbath, which I showed you on the chart before. Now, 7 represents completeness or wholeness. So we're going to look at that and realize that during this particular time frame when humans were created, they were created holy and perfect. They were without sin. And again, I will emphasize again, during this time frame when humans were perfect, holy, we don't know how long that was that they were in the garden before they fell. I am emphasizing that because that is very important. So people come up with different timelines, and some people say this has been going on for thousands of years before that, all of that. It could be. We don't know. So we can't take no dogmatic view that that at the exact time when Adam and Eve fell, they were put in a garden and they fell the next day. Or they fell within that year. We don't know that. Okay? So we can't make this assumption. We're only talking about after the fall, 4000 BC. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about anything else. Okay, now we're going to compare these two timelines. We talked about the timeline of Adam and Eve, or the humans. Okay, they're being created, and we're talking about the plan of salvation, the plan to bring us back. Okay, we talk about 7 days for the creation plan, okay, as he laid it out. Now, when we talk about the 7 days, remember, man was created perfect on which day? The 6th day, not the 7th day. Very important. Okay, now we're going to compare this. The Bible tells us that 1 day is 1,000 years with Yahweh. That's in Peter, the Epistle of Peter. It's also in Psalms. So if we count every day as 1,000 years, then we would come up with how many days? How many years? We would come up with 7,000-year plan of salvation or recreation. Recreation of us, recreating us. Saving us from what? Saving us from ourselves, from our fallen condition. Bringing us back. Restoration. Okay? So we're going to compare each day of creation with 1,000 years. Which will give us our 7,000 years. Okay, so if we have 6 days of creation, and he rested on the 7th day, and man or humans were created, Adams were created on the 6th day. Okay, now we're comparing this again. What is this? 6,000 years for the reign of sin on the earth. So we're talking about 6,000 years it's going to take to what? Recreate us. Bring us back. So this plan will go on for 6,000 years, and we're ending it nearly somewhere around the 6,000-year time frame. Now, when we look at this, and I'm hoping you can see the 1 day is 1,000 years, 7-day cycle, 1 day to 6 days. And remember, on the 6th day, he created humans perfect. Okay, so during this time frame, for that to occur, what has to happen next is that Now, a lot of this goes into greater detail when I do last day events. So this is just a synopsis of the time frame that we're living in. But I think we need to understand that just so that we can get a better understanding of what's going on, what has been going on. Okay, so we have day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this was when he was created perfect. So then we should know that the perfection of the 144 will be during this time frame. That's my point. That when he was created, when he recreates it, he recreates the 144 at this end time. That's why it's an end time prophecy. It's right before the sabbatical. Okay? All right, I hope you're following that. And during the sabbatical, that's going to be the sabbatical millennium. That's when we will live and reign with him for 1,000 years, 1,000 years of peace. As you can see, this is called the sabbatical millennium because this is the first millennium, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And now we have the sabbatical millennium. Now, remember, everything is in 7. We have weeks of 7. We have 6 days thou shalt labor and the 7th day rest, sabbatical. Then it talks about that every year the land needs to rest. So if you work the land for 6 years, the 7th year is the sabbatical. And that's when you're supposed to let the land rest. Then this same pattern, and so this is the pattern that was given. So as you can look at this as days or as years, okay, you can see in the 7th year you rested. On the 7th day you rested. And on the 7,000th year, land will rest. Earth, I believe. Okay, so as you can see, the 1st, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, sabbatical millennium. Now, who was learning and living during those time frames? Who was Yahweh's people during those time frames? Big question. Okay, so whenever we're talking about the Bible, we're always talking about a time frame that leaves out the first 2,000 years. Abraham. So what happened during those first 2,000 years? Who were the first people to worship and serve Yahweh? That part is always left out of these books, out of these commentaries, and out of everything because they don't want us to know that. But we do know it. And these are the Africans. This is when the Africans reigned and ruled, and the Africans served the Creator during that time frame. Then, the second 2,000 years, around 2000 BC, that's when Abraham, the Hebrews, came on the scene of action. And then they served him during this particular time frame. And they served him all the way up until around 0 BC. That's when the Gentiles started coming in, around 33 BC. And then we have the last 2,000 years that the Europeans have been reigning. Okay, so we have all of these different people learning about Yahweh and his will. Now the question is, what do we do with this? Who has been following Yahweh the longest? Obviously, the Africans have been following him the longest, but no one in the European world who rules today wants you to even think about who was the first people. And then now in the Christian world, they tell you that Judaism is gone away with and all the Hebrew stuff is gone away with. And they're telling you, hey, then they're not important either. So the only people that are important according to today's Christian standard is the European. Now, this is most interesting because they have been the last ones to learn about the Creator. So if you're the last ones to learn about the Creator, how do you know anything? So that's why when we talk about this, notice it says the African Hebrews. So because all the Africans did not forsake Yahweh at that time, because you know what Noah didn't and so forth. So all the people did not forsake Yahweh. So these Africans that followed Yahweh, and the Bible talks about a mixed multitude that left Egypt. And as we go through our studies, you'll see the intermarriage of these Africans with the Hebrews, and that's why they're called African Hebrews. You just even think of it yourself. There was you have 12 tribes. In those 12 tribes, you have 4 wives. Jacob has 4 wives. He has Leah, who he was tricked into. Okay. Then 7 years later, he was able to marry Rachel, which was his love. So those were the 2 sisters. And then when Rachel couldn't have children, she told Jacob to go into her handmaiden, which was Bilhah. And then she had 2 sons. And then when when Leah couldn't bear children anymore, she had 6 children. She told Jacob to go into her handmaiden, which was Zilpah. And she had 2 handmaidens. Now, both of these handmaidens were, in the ancient world, were Africans, either Ethiopians or Egyptians, just like Abraham had Hagar, the Egyptian, as his servant. So now, in the first generation of the 12 sons, you have what? 4 of them that are dads, that mom is African. So from the very beginning of this lineage of the 12 tribes of Israel, it's always been an African Hebrew race. Not purely African by themselves, not purely Hebrew by themselves, but a mixture of the 2. Okay, so now you have this group of Africans who are still around, these Africans who've been serving Yahweh for 4,000 years up until this time. And now today, that's why, amen, praise him, I got it. That's why in the last 2,000 years, the Bible makes it crystal clear that now the Gentiles, Europeans, can be grafted in to what? This group that already existed, that for 4,000 years. So we be studying all that the Europeans have to say, and they are isolating, telling you point blank, the Jews are no more, so you don't need to follow any of the stuff in the Old Testament, and they don't even let us know that any Africans ever followed Yahweh. They would have us that we're heathen. We're not heathen. Okay? So as we go through this journey, we're going to be searching and discovering so many things in Africa as it relates to prove this point. Okay? This is just going to be a proven point as you go through and understand. And notice, okay, how do you have any Africans? Where does the Bible talk about Africans being his people? You're talking about him being his people. Okay, I don't see that in the Bible. Tell me where that is. Okay, most people do read the part that talks about that the Gentiles, can come in. Okay, where does it ever say that the Africans can come in? Okay, we know that the Hebrews, they were for 2,000 years. So notice what it says here in Isaiah 19, verse 25. Whom Yahweh of hosts shall bless. Saying, that should be an S there, sorry, my fault. Saying, blessed be Egypt, my people. What did he say? Blessed be Egypt, my people. And that is very interesting. He says that Egypt is his people. Now, no one ever talks about that. No one uses this verse hardly. But this is just to prove that the first 2,000 years before the Hebrews came into existence, before Abraham was born, that Egypt, the Africans, was Yahweh's people. So we should be able to see a correlation into the Egyptian teachings with the right perspective, not with all these multi-gods and polytheism and all the rest of that stuff, which the Europeans have been trying to tell us that they were. But how could they be polytheists if they were further than Yahweh? If Egypt is my people. And Assyria, the work of my hand, and Israel, my inheritance. So people, make sure we get this right. Okay?
Thank you for being part of this study. And for more information, please contact Dr. Emanuel, also known as Dr. Eman, the Electric Man, His email address is Emanuel, Emanuel at ESNScorp.com. And visit his website, www.peopleofcolor1.com. When you visit his website, click on the schedule of events, which talks about his workshops, classes that he has online, webinars, ebooks, workbooks. Also, his 3-day and 10-day cleanse program. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for being part of this study.